Okay, so I did say next I was going to work on the player objective, somewhere for the player to go, but I can see that cube is not working out for the player object. You can see the sides of it. Now, so yeah, I really should have used a plane. But I don't like the planes because their scale's out compared to the rest of the objects in the rest of the world. So when it says it's a scale of 1 to 1, it's really a scale of 10. So let's scale this plane down. Okay, and then I have to rotate it on the X. Zero out its position. Okay, so let's replace that cube with that plane. What did I call it? A graphic. And of course I don't want a collider because it's just a graphic. Let's give it the texture. It's rotated the wrong way. Gosh. What's that? The green one, which is the Y. 180. No. Because planes are difficult. 180. Alright, so now where's that plane gone? Straight. That's the Z. So I was right. How come I didn't rotate 180 on the Y? What is going on with this stupid thing? Okay, so that's 90. Okay, 90, 0.075. Okay, so that's our new player graphic. Let's get rid of the cube. Make sure it's all working. And I can't see the sides of it now. Hopefully. Well, definitely, because there is no sides. It's a plane. Okay, a little bit happier. So let's save that scene. Now let's move on to the player objective. I'm just going to use a castle. So let's create a cube. Zero that out. Create material. Okay, so what I want to do is I also want to make a graphic for this. So this time I'm going to leave the box collider. Okay, it's going to be hard to imagine what I'm trying to set up here. What I want to do is the player can only win by coming from the bottom to the doorway. I don't want the player to come from the sides. They have to come from the bottom. So I'm going to have to configure the colliders around a little bit to get this to work. Now the castle graphic, so we'll leave the collider on it, but I'm going to rescale it. So let's set the Y to 0.8. This will all become clear. And so 0.1. Okay, that's a bit hard to see. So there we go. I've set the collider so it's around the top half. So if the player's coming from a side, he's going to hit the collider and not be able to come in. The top and the right hand side, he's not going to be able to come in. Now on the main castle, I'm going to set the collider to the front. Just going to put it down here. So let's set that 0.8 and I could even say 0.2 here and 0.8. Whoops. What was on there? 0.4. Okay, so how does that look as a whole? So there we go. So if the player comes in from the side, he's going to hit this collider. It's going to stop him from moving, and he's not going to touch my doorway collider. So that's what that is, that little doorway. And that's on the main castle graph. So let's go back to textured. We'll put the castle. I haven't given it a texture yet. Castle texture on the castle graphic. And the castle itself, I don't want a mesh renderer, and of course the graphics backwards. Okay, because it's facing the other way. But the collider's in the right spot. Okay, and make the graphic a child of the castle. Okay, that's what I want. So I'm going to set up a script that works just off the castle collider there. So as soon as the player hits that bottom collider, that's going to be the end of the level. Let's even create a JavaScript to show that in action. Okay. And it's now 26. Now I haven't set the collider to a trigger because it doesn't matter. I'm just going to be setting off some effects and loading the next level or setting up the next level, which will be coming much later. So this is an on collision enter command, and it's going to be the other of type collision. Now for now we can just do a debug log. You have reached the castle. We don't need some variable, we don't need that at all. So I'll put that on the castle and give it a script. Make a prefab of the castle. And load up the level scene. Alright, should make a prefab of the player too. Okay, let's bring the castle into the scene. Rather than instantiate it, I'll do it just like the player object gets moved to its position. Let's just set it out of the way over there at 10. There it is. And while that collider probably doesn't make much sense at the moment, it will when we start seeing it work. Now, we need to go to the level manager to look at how and where we're going to place this castle. So just like here, how we set the player position, we're going to have to do pretty much all the same thing as here as for the castle. So create a variable for the castle object as a transform. So it's pretty much, okay, that's after the player. So let's set the castle position. If in the castle equals game object find castle's transform. Okay, we need to be a little bit clever about this now. Okay, where's I don't have that image open. So if we just load up the scene. Now where I want the castle to be is not in the exact corner, but I kind of want it here. The player has to come around to it. I could possibly put it even here. Okay, that might be good if I actually put it in between the second last steel blocks. Alright, so on the Y, what's that? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'll set that at 4 on the Y. And for the X, Now this is where we have to do some of those calculations. So where's the level size? So level size dot x minus, how many do we have to come in? 1, 2, 3, 4. And remember, arrays count from 0, so that's another minus 1. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 minus 5. Log x minus 5. Okay, so let's save that out. Start the scene again. Let's see if that castle moves to where I want it to be. No, where's the castle? Okay, no, I've got that wrong. 1, 2, 3, 4, not 5. Close, but no cigar. Okay, now pretty sure that'll work now, but similarly, as we allocated blank spaces for the player's starting position, I also want to make sure that there's no rock that gets instantiated on top of the castle. There'd be a good chance of that. So that's where it's going. Now rocks to spawn. No, before we create the rock list, leave space below the player. Leave a space for the castle. And I'll just paste that code that I had ready to go there. So I can copy that. So if the last item that we added to the list is a vector2 of the same as what we put in the start. Oops, that is the vector2 bracket. So leave a space for the empty castle. If the last position on the empty space list that we added is equal to the castle position, then remove that as well, because we want to leave space for the castle. That should be about it. Play. There's our castle finally in the right spot. There's no rocks on it, which is groovy. So I could probably stop and start this several times. Actually, what was the other test I did? Where is the level manager? We can set the rock percentage up to 1, so it's going to fill up every empty space. Play on that. Okay, so yep, every space is filled except for the player starting position and the castle position. And if I move the castle out, yep, there's no rock hidden in there. So that's great. That's all happening. Better reset that. Now I don't know if I saved it after I added the castle, so let's just save that now. So now every time I hit play, we should have the castle in that position. Alright, now let's see, did I add that script to the castle? Sure did. Alright, let's see if we can blast our way down to the castle quickly and see if things are happening. Like, I just want that debug that shows me that I've reached the castle. I have unlimited bombs and I can drop unlimited bombs, so I should be able to get there fairly quickly. Ouch, ouch. Too quick on that one as well. Walked right into that. I'd be dead many times by now if this was real. Okay, so yeah, I better try and check coming from the top first. Okay, so let's just clear the console and click back on the screen. Of course, that's the fire button. Now, if I try and come into the castle from the top, nothing's happening. If I try and come into the castle from the bottom, you have reached the castle. There we go. That trigger is happening. That collision event is happening. It's not a trigger, it's a collider. Yeah, breach the castle. Actually, pretty much. The side of the sphere is touching that immediately. I could play around with the size of that a little bit so that the player has to go onto the castle. I'm not sure. But it's doing its job anyway, that's the main thing. Yeah, I've reached the castle. Not from the top. Only from the doorway at the bottom. Yeah, I've reached the castle. Okay. So there we have it. We have an objective and we have a debug all set up ready so that we know that the player's reached there and everything's set in place when we start mucking around with different levels. Actually, before I go, that's something else I didn't really show off. The level manager. That's the whole point of doing all this in the array like this and calculating values based on the level size, because we can muck around with these level sizes. Let's just say if we had a level 7 by 5. There we go. But that is pretty small, so the castle is bound to be hidden in there somewhere. Okay, yeah, see the castle's hidden on the border. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's ridiculously small. So let's just say an 11 by an 11 size world. And there we go. So no matter what size your world is, you're always going to have that 3 spaces at the top for the player and the position for the castle there. So you just got to be realistic about your level size. Of course you can exaggerate it. Let's try 25 by 25. Boom, that is one big level. But we've still got the same thing happening. There's always the 3 spaces left for the player, and the space is always left there for the castle. So this is what we're going to do. As each level is completed, we'll just reload the level, and we'll increase. We can do anything we want. We can modify the level size as soon as we start. Yeah,